Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Eblin, and I'm shooting this short video to talk about how to lead compelling virtual meetings and development programs. It's going to be super informal and super on the fly, but I want to share with you some ideas that I've learned because I think it's important right now to be talking about this. Thanks to the coronavirus, you've probably had a bunch of meetings and conferences canceled this week. And about an hour or two before I started filming this, even South by Southwest canceled their big annual conference. So we're going to see more and more of this kind of thing over the coming weeks. And obviously, the first priority now is for all of us to stay safe and to help other people be healthy and safe. So we're going to have to stay home, and maybe not travel so much. Fortunately, though, if you're watching this, you have access to technology that enables you to keep business going even when you have to stay home. In my work as a leadership educator and keynote speaker, I've been doing 20 or 30 webinars, interactive keynotes, and multi-session leadership development programs for the last 3 or 4 years. And based on the feedback that I get from those programs and the fact that about 95% of the online participants stay online until the sessions are over, I think I've learned some things that work. And so I want to share those with you in this video. There are about 7 big ideas, 5 plus 2 is 7, 7 big ideas that I've learned as best practices. And I'm going to use the share and the screen function on Zoom to kind of toggle back and forth to make those points. So the first big point is you want to design from the room. And so what I mean by that is when you're planning your online session, imagine as if you were going to do it in a physical room with people actually in the room with you. What would you do in terms of interaction and design principles if you were actually together in a physical room? And then as much as you can, think about how can I use the technology that's available to me and all the functionality with that to replicate that same experience online, right? For instance, there's a lot you can do with a discussion in a group session that you can do online. There's a lot that you can do with questions and feedback and input, with interactive exercises, so many things like that that you can do online that you would normally do in a physical room. So what would I do in the room? How can I do that online? A big part of that is the way you design your graphics and the way you keep people engaged. And one of the things I would say is it's less is more on lots of text and more is more on graphics and light text. For instance, I try to keep my graphics really big and filling the screen. This is the cover of my 3rd edition of The Next Level. And the way I bring that into a conversation quite often is to talk about 3 big imperatives that leaders have to master if they're going to succeed at the next level. And the first is they have to manage themselves. You have to manage yourself effectively. And if you do that, then you can leverage your team effectively, right? And if you're leveraging your team, that gives you the bandwidth and a mental white space to engage your colleagues. So my point in sharing that was really not to talk about managing, leveraging, and engaging, but to let you see how I'm using a simple visual to help me talk through some points. You really want people focused on you, right? And not your slides and trying to read every little word on the slide. So design from the room. What would I do if I was in the room, and how would I create that same experience in the virtual room online? That kind of leads to my second point, which is to go multimodal. And what I mean by multimodal is you don't want people just focused on the screen. You want to give them a lot of things to do. And I'm going to stop sharing here and go to another screen. One of the ways to do that is to have handouts, okay? And prepare handouts in advance. So like this is a handout that I did a couple of years ago on a webinar I did for other coaches, actually on coaching leaders to the next level. And you can see it's in a PDF format. There's that next level slide I just showed. There's the pyramid slide I just walked through. I've got spaces for them to write in the, fill in the blanks, basically, take notes in the margin. And then as we go, there's other things that I'm going to talk about during the session itself, but towards the back of the handouts, we've got worksheets. I can get there. We've got a self-assessment to fill out to use later, just a very simple numerical self-assessment on different items. We've got tables that you might want to refer back to later. This is an interactive conversation that we would do online around what's the energy that you're bringing to a conversation. my Life GPS worksheet, an online worksheet on communication strategies. So anything, again, that you can do in the room physically, you can do online. You just have to prep people for that. And one of the beautiful things about a handout is it allows people to keep their brains engaged during the session. They're not multitasking, which quite often happens in virtual sessions. And they've got a takeaway, that they can use later. And so there's multiple value points in that multimodal approach. So let me stop sharing on that and go back to the original PowerPoint deck. And that'll bring us to point number 3, which is to show people how to play. And so here's what I mean by that. In Zoom, in this example, you've got different icons that enable you to do different things. Like you can raise your virtual hand. There's a little hand icon in Zoom. Mouse over that and click on it. I raise my hand to get somebody's attention. There's a Q&A function on Zoom where I can type in like real questions, right? There's a polling function, which I'll talk more about later. There's a chat function. And I find the chat function to be really helpful in terms of engaging people with, give me a quick answer to this question, and I'll talk more about that in a minute too. But one of the things you want to do, I've learned at the outset of a virtual session, is help people get oriented, right? Where are all these really cool tools they can use during the session? Because a lot of times it's not obvious. And just to confirm that people have found them, what I'll do is say, click on your virtual hand and give me a wave if you found it. And then I see my screen fill up with virtual hands, right? Or type in a question for me, just a test question. Hey, Scott, how you doing today? Good, use the Q&A function to do that. Or say hello to me on the chat function so I know you've found it. And then all of a sudden I start seeing a bunch of chat replies run up my screen. And so it's just to help people get engaged with it and use it. And so